Welcome back, Phosphor Dot fans. We are here once again with the Atari 7800. Since some of the homebrew coverage that I've done for the 7800 went over so well, I thought maybe we should double back and examine some of the first-party games that actually came out contemporary with the hardware itself. So why not start with an old favorite of mine, Ms. Pac-Man, released much later than its copyright date of 1984. And here's the story behind that. The 7800 was developed in response to some of the market feedback that Atari had from the 5200. Oops. So some of the features of the 7800, including a very different controller than the one the 5200 had, thank goodness, and out-of-the-box compatibility with the Atari 2600. Those features were intended to make the 7800 competitive in 1984. Another thing that happened in 1984 was that Atari's home computer and home video game division were sold to Jack Tramiel, and he immediately made some decisions about Atari's future, having just been ousted from the board of Commodore. And so Jack wanted his new acquisition to go head-to-head with Commodore in the home computer space. And that was a large factor behind the Atari ST line of computers that came out in the 90s. But as far as Jack Tramiel was concerned, Atari was done with video games. In fact, the arcade half of the company, all of those assets were sold off to Midway, which kept them more or less intact under the name of Atari Games. And so the arcade properties were held out separate from the home video game IP. If you're wondering why Ms. Pac-Man is doing such a great job of kicking my butt in this home edition, the 7800 port was programmed by General Computer Corporation, the same outfit that originated the arcade game of Ms. Pac-Man back when it was going to be an unofficial Pac-Man enhancement board called Crazy Otto. So you're talking about a company that had access to the original code. I want to see if I can play a better game than that. Could be because I'm imparting so much information instead of just playing the darn game. If I remember correctly, GCC also had at least consulting input on the 7800's hardware as well. So with the 7800 mothballed in 1984, it was not released at the time when it really would have been something of a game changer. It really obviously didn't go anywhere during the first few years of the Tramiel era of Atari. But one thing that did happen that changed their mind about the 7800 was that Nintendo had suddenly become the new major success story in video games, and here they had a platform that they felt was pretty close to being on a par with Nintendo's hardware. That is debatable, I think. But with the hardware finalized in 1984 and a fistful of arcade game licenses that were still in force, even though some of those companies had parted ways with Atari since, such as Nintendo. Atari had hardware on hand, they had software already developed. They really didn't have much to lose, and the 7800 debuted at a somewhat lower price point than the full-up NES stack that included the robot operating buddy and the light gun and all of the other extras. And so briefly, Atari made a slight comeback, a very small comeback. It was much more appealing for 2600 owners to step up to this, knowing that they could play their old VCS games right out of the box, you know, without having to buy an extra peripheral to achieve backward compatibility. I thought I was doing really good there for a second. I was trying to go up and get that one dot. Ah! That one dot is going to be the death of me. There, I finally got the one dot. One dot to rule them all. Yeah, for me, once you get to about the strawberry and pretzel stages in Ms. Pac-Man, it's no longer eat every ghost, it's just stay alive. If indeed that's possible. If you can eat some ghosts along the way, that's great. Don't base your whole strategy on it, though. So there you have the story of Ms. Pac-Man on the Atari 7800. It's a really good port, given the hardware. The sound is almost spot on. The graphics, still not quite arcade perfect. But, you know, not bad for one of the 7800's opening volleys. So, we'll play some more 7800 games soon and see what you make of those.